Yeah, I have a, as I told. I emailed Jesse to see.
It's 6 o'clock, so let's start this business meeting of Urbana School District 116. Roll call, please.
Member Baxley,
Here.
Member Hickson, Member Jones,
Here.
Member Staton, Member Langendorf here, Vice President Exum,
Here.
President Pulowski.
Here, we do have a quorum. There are no additions, corrections to tonight's agenda. Okay, there are none. It's now time for citizen statements. Anybody wishing to make a citizen statement for the board, please fill out a goldenrod sheet and hand it to Recording Secretary Lori Johnson. Going once, going twice. No citizen statements this evening. There is a call for an executive session after tonight's meeting for the purpose of personnel. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are no commendations or recognitions, and our student ambassadors were unable to make it this evening, so we'll move straight into our policy review. For the first read of policy 2:230 for public participation in school board meetings and petitions to the board. I guess because this is kind of done by a working group
Yes.
of the board. So that was Sherry Solali.
And I believe Susan, yeah, our attorney was gonna Zoom. Is she in the?
We're too fast.
Yeah, I think we got here quite quick. What do you,
Yeah.
is she in there?
I mean, we can do the audit and then come back to this.
Oh,
Okay, that's we're gonna table this section and move straight into our first administrative report, which is our auditor's report.
Heather doesn't mind. She has to drive.
Exactly. She can get out of here sooner. Yeah.
I'll take a hard copy if you.
They're usually big. So many pages.
I know, but I usually keep it from my file and on my folder, on my, yeah. I keep it on my folder, on my shelf.
Right on there. Can I ask a question while we're waiting, Paul? Case question. Did you want me to go through this? Paul, going back to the new policy, is that something you want me to read, or is that Susan going to read? I assume, because her name was there, that she was going to talk about it.
Well, she's just here for legal, well,
Advice?
she's just kinda here for legal advice,
Okay.
and if we have questions,
I mean, this was published publicly in the packet, so
Yeah.
people can actually read it online. You could read the changes to the policy if you want to. I think it's more important to kind of summarize the
'Cause
intent.
there was a part that was missing.
Oh, there was a part that was missing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then we'll have to read that publicly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, are we ready?
Are you ready for me? Yep.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you, Heather.
perfect. All right. I'm going to get to those slides in just a little bit. But first, just wanted to kind of recap, I guess, what all we issue. We have completed the audit this year. Pretty much everything we issue is similar to what we would have issued in the past. So we issue the financial statements, we issue the annual financial report, the single audit report, and then a couple of other reports that are required for the state. So just to kind of go through those really quickly as far as how we landed. The financial statements, they're the ones that say independent auditors report. Really nothing changed in these this year too much. There was no new accounting standards, so really nothing that would have impacted this from that standpoint. So it should look pretty similar to prior year. The one thing I did want to mention that we added this year, one of your local grants did require us to do some additional audit procedures this year for the first time. So we added a separate supplementary section related to the schedules required for that. So that's included in here, and that would be something that would look different from last year. That was clean. There was nothing that we found related to that specific grant, but it was just some language in your grant agreement that required us to do some additional schedules. So that is part of the financial statements rather than issuing another report because there's so many separate reports. So we just kind of included that all in there together. So we'll continue to do that as long as that is required. And then the annual financial report, of course, is the one that's required by the Illinois State Board of Education. It's on the regulatory basis of accounting. We will take care of filing that as soon as it's approved. So we can do that tomorrow or whenever it's ready to be submitted. And then we issue a single audit report, which again was a clean opinion, no issues there. That will get submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse as soon as that's approved as well. So nothing with those. And then the consolidated year-end financial report is another state-required report that they pull down themselves once we upload it. So there's nothing else that we need to do with that. So that's all of those reports. We do also issue an audit committee report. That's what is up on the screen right now. Let's see if I can get, oh gosh, did I do that wrong? Okay, there we go. So this just kind of goes through our required communications. I don't spend time on every screen, but really the bulk of it is kind of here where we talk about the significant accounting policies. Those are outlined in footnote 1. No unusual accounting practices or alternative accounting treatments that we would need to disclose to you all. Nothing that we consider an estimate. In the disclosures, just to mention that we do kind of call out if there are any over expenditures of budget or the few deficit fund balances that you all do have. We include those there in the footnotes. I failed to mention with the financial statements, but we do issue an adverse opinion, which you all, I think, are familiar with, that we've issued before due to the non-GAAP reporting that you do, but no other concern about the quality of financial reporting that we would need to report to you. This also does include what we used to issue separately as a management letter. I would just mention that there were no new matters to report this year, and nothing that we considered to be a significant deficiency or material weakness. And then just a few what we call other matters are included in here as well. So that's kind of the required communications are in that document. And then the only other thing we issued, oh, thanks, that's fine. The only other thing that we issued are these slides that I sometimes have on the screen and go through, but just to kind of hit a few highlights in those. I'm sure you all remember this, but the fund balances here probably aren't the same as what you see throughout the year. These are the accrual basis. So just wanted to mention that the ed fund did have a positive change when we're talking accrual basis statements this year, up from 18 million to almost 25 million this year. As far as expenses for the adult ed and the ed fund, those were considerably under budget, mainly in instruction and support services, those areas. And then on the flip side, revenues, pretty much everything but capital projects, those were actually over budget, mainly due to the timing of payments. So the local funds, we go and take real estate taxes 60 days out, accrue them back. Same with federal and state revenue. We kind of take them out from last year, put them in from this year. So it's kind of, it makes things a little bit confusing for you all when you're used to seeing cash basis. But those were over budget in most areas. So just wanted to mention that. And then finally, we do always recap what the working cash balances. As you know, that's directly tied to the interfund loans the working cash fund makes to the other funds. So that was about 3.5 million as compared to 2.6 million, which is directly correlated to the balance in those interfund loans at the end of the year. So I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you all might have, but considering all the turnover and the fun we had with the audit this year, I think it was good results, and I appreciate everyone's help. It took a lot of variety of people. I look forward to working with Mary Ann in the future, but it was nice that you guys had Carol to come back and help, and Liz, so we made it through.
Board members, any questions about the financial audit? Nope. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty much the same as it's been the past several years. So
yeah, there's really not anything, and I mean, because really Katie was there for the bulk of the year, so Carol was just kind of helping with the for the audit perspective, just kind of gathering the information.
Okay.
So.
Well, you've got copies of the audit, physical if you want, and there's the PDF version. If you have any questions, you can take them to Mary Ann, and we can look into things. But looks like we're compliant. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Is Susan ready, or should we go? Or are we ready to go? Should we just go on to the tax levy? Okay, let's just do the 1002 then.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Am I good on here with the mic? Okay, good evening. Tonight I'll be presenting to you the proposed tax levy. The levy is a formal request by a taxing district for a certain amount of revenue to be generated by property tax. The tax levy provides approximately 60% of the district's operating revenues each year. And it's a complex and confusing process that might lead to questions from the community. And it's my goal to provide you any answers to any of the questions you may have. Up here you'll have an overview of the presentation. And on this slide you'll see a key term that you're going to hear me say tonight a lot is equalized assessed value, or EAV. The EAV is approximately 1/3 market value of your property, and it's the figure on which your tax bill is calculated. You may have seen this number on a Board of Review assessment notice if you own property in Urbana. Another important term that you're going to hear a lot tonight is PTEL, or property tax extension limitation law, which is also known as tax caps. PTEL is a law that was approved by voters in Champaign County in 1996, and it allows a taxing district to receive an inflationary increase in tax extensions on the existing property values. It is limited to the lesser of 5% or the change in CPI or Consumer Price Index, plus any additional amount for new property. CPI is the measure of the average change over time in prices paid by urban consumers for a market basket of consumer goods and services, and it's the measure that's used in tax cap legislation. CPI for 2024 is 3.4%, so we're only allowed an increase of 3.4% over the prior year's extension. Therefore, we balloon levy so we don't miss any of the one-time opportunities in new construction or possible TIFs that expire. This provides us a safety net since all of this is an estimate at this point in time. We actually I bring the proposed levy to you in November, but the levy cycle begins the January before when CPI is available for that year. Then over the summer, the County Assessor's Office publishes an EAV estimate for the coming year. Using these pieces of information, then we begin calculating our proposed levy. And the main point that I want you to be aware of and to emphasize tonight is that the tax cycle begins before all the information is available, and so property values are not finalized until April, so you must levy with estimates and information that we have available at this point in time. And so you're going to hear me say this a lot, but this is why Urbana historically balloon levies, because any new construction values that are not captured when they're first declared, we lose that revenue for every succeeding year. Because we're proposing a levy over 5% of the prior year's extension, following the board's approval tonight, we'll publish a Truth in Taxation public hearing notice, or also known as the black box, in the newspaper and on our website. The board will then hold the public meeting or the public hearing and finalize the levy at the December business meeting ahead of the filing deadline. This black box is typically published in early December, and it has to be between 7 to 14 days prior to the December board meeting and public hearing. And as of August 9th, 2024, we're also required to post this on our website for a period of not less than 30 consecutive days. And you may notice that this is already on the website just so we can make sure we meet the timeline. This slide shows Urbana's tax levy history. Again, the levy is prepared based on estimates, and the final values are not known until after the filing deadline. Because of this, the district has historically made our levy requests larger than our actual dollars received. This allows for changes in values that occur between the filing deadline in December and the finalization of the levy in April. This shows that our levy request does not determine the extension or what we actually receive. The final extension is a calculation performed by the county clerk based on what tax caps allow us legally to collect. Since 2016, the district has balloon levied due to the possibility of the tax-exempt hospital properties coming back on the tax rolls if those cases were ever resolved in our favor. And we're still choosing to follow this practice because recent years have benefited from the new property growth, especially in 2022 when we had approximately $34 million in new property plus $20 million in a TIF that expired. So the balloon levy protected the district at that time to capture all that new revenue. This slide displays the historical tax rates for Urbana since 2009. In 2013, you'll see a spike, and that was the year that the hospital exemption went into effect. And so in order for the district to receive what we were legally allowed, the remaining taxpayers had to cover that difference. This slide shows the history of our equalized assessed value since 2009. What's interesting to note here is that the decreasing amounts of EAV from 2011 to 2015 coincide with the increasing tax rates. And this is a perfect example of what PTEL does. It protects taxpayers in times of EAV growth by lowering the tax rate, and it protects the district in times of declining EAVs by increasing the tax rate. This is also where you can see a jump in EAV in 2022, and again there was a jump in 2023, and the balloon levy protected the district during that time to capture that new revenue. And this slide kind of brings all of it together. This is what you're approving in your memo tonight. On the left-hand side, you'll see what the district was extended in each fund from the last year or the 2023 levy. The proposed levy is a 25% increase over the 23 extension and hopes to capture any new construction or possible tips that we may have missed. That's the subtotal right there is the proposed levy. And then the debt service is part of the total levy, but the county clerk levies that on our behalf with information that we filed from the bond resolutions. And then the revenue recapture is added automatically once extensions are finalized, but it's not really part of our levy. And while showing that our levy request is 59 million and CPI being 3.4%, if there's no big unknowns, we're probably going to be closer with a 50 million extension. But the balloon levy is just our safety net because there's really nothing that says don't do it. So thank you. And do you have any questions?
Board members, any questions? No, this is what we've done my entire time on the board. We've asked for 25% more or whatever than the prior year, just in case. Like you said, there's a suit that reevaluates hospital property, or there's a TIF expires, or there's a new big property that comes online to capture all of that. The effect it has on an individual homeowner is just the only reason they would ever see a big increase is if their personal property increased at a higher rate than everybody else's in town. So, right. If there's-
There certainly was a lot of confusion about what it meant to have that increase, and it's not an increase that the homeowner will see.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
the 25% is the balloon for the extension for
Mhm.
what the EAV is, the equalized assessed value.
Right.
So this is on new construction that is after the tax, after June and September, or when you say missing?
Yeah, so we get the EAV. It's an estimate that comes from the county clerk's office in like August, and then it's not finalized until February, April.
Okay.
So there's that big gap, and so you don't really know
If the new construction starts?
and how much it's going to impact. Yeah.
Okay. And then if it will affect a person's property taxes if their assessed value goes up for any reason?
That would be, yeah, that's what the county clerk, like how they assess your property,
Right.
then it's
Based
part of
off
that
of-
like big pie, yeah.
Yeah, based off of comps or, yeah,
Correct.
okay. Or you put an addition on your house or something,
Mhm.
okay.
yeah.
Because of the Think Urbana program, even though we see lots of homes being built the last couple of years, we won't see that increase in our tax rolls until maybe 4 or 5 years down the road to see. But there's some that were built 4 or 5 years ago that we'll see now. So it's good to have that increases.
Yeah. And the black box, it kind of has a negative connotation to it because it's the 5% over the extension, and so it looks scary. But a lot of districts are implementing it now too because of a lot of these unknowns in the estimates and how our EAV is going to be turning out.
Right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
No, this was a great explanation, and thank you for answering this for the public. All right, if that's everybody, I think Susan's available now. So we can go back to 9.1, the first read of our public participation policy, 2:230. Hi, Susan, can you hear us?
I can.
Yeah, we can-
Can everyone hear me?
yes, we can hear you as well.
Okay, so this is a follow-up to a discussion at an earlier board meeting about modifying board policy 2230 related to public comment and public participation during the board meetings.
Hey, Susan, I
yeah.
was gonna see maybe Paul or Sherry, for people who might be tuning in, should we give a little background to like how we got here, since we haven't talked about this in a couple
Sure.
meetings?
This originated, and I wish Member Stanton were here because what we did we typically do at the end, the last board meeting of the academic year, and the first meeting of the academic year is the board discusses items they would like to accomplish during the year. One of these things typically is policy changes, and Member Stanton brought forward to the board desire to take an examination of this particular process in an effort to streamline our board meetings. And so we had an earlier discussion on the types of changes we would like to see this policy, and came up with a bullet list of things. And then Member Stanton and Sherry went and worked with Susan to make a formal policy change, and that's what we're reading now.
Yeah, they kind of work together and share their changes, and then I pass them on to Susan. Is kind of how it worked. Yeah.
Right, we had different ideas, and we wanted to incorporate both of our ideas so that there was a balance as
Yep.
far as participation from the public and also responsibilities that we have as well. But there's one part that's missing, Susan, of the recommendation. So,
So when we get to
Okay.
that part, will
Okay.
you jump in?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I did watch the meeting where this was initially proposed just to get a feeling for where the board wanted to go with this. And then also utilized the brainstorming notes that Dr. Ivory Tatum forwarded to me. So if there is a portion missing, I'll need you to clarify that for me, because I'll admit I was working off those two things. But what I drew from the conversation and the notes was a goal to try to make the meetings more efficient and try to keep that within a time limit of about 3.5 hours, in incorporating public participation and public comment. So after reviewing other public participation policies, both school district and public bodies generally, the suggestion was to go with a total public participation time limited to 1 hour. And then also, rather than utilizing 5 minutes, reducing that to 3 minutes per person. As existed previously in your policy, there is the authority to reduce that time depending on the number of speakers for each individual speaker, as well as when needed to expand the total public participation time, depending on the topic. And for both of those, under the existing policy, I followed the language that the board president has the authority to do so. In addition to those modifications to the public comment period during board meetings, there's also a provision that board members are expected to attend at least 2 school-based meetings per fiscal year in which they are available to meet with members of the public and hear concerns. There's also language that no more than 2 members can attend any individual meeting, and that's simply to make sure there are no Open Meetings Act issues. Any changes to the proposed policy are marked by underscore, and anything that's been eliminated is marked by strike through. There's also a proposed exhibit that is entirely new. Rather than underline the entire thing, I'm just noting the entire thing is new. And the purpose of that is really just to put together a plan for how both public participation will work, but also how these additional meetings that board members will attend, both to ensure that they're happening, clarify what meetings would be appropriate, kind of to make it clear that PTA meeting is something that would fall within the umbrella of what you're looking for. Going to a basketball game, not so much. Also, that those will be reported to the superintendent or the designee to ensure that nobody is going to a meeting that we don't know about, so you don't have an Open Meetings Act violation where you have more than 2 board members appear. Now, to be clear, you can expect this and encourage it, but there's really no way to require it. It's a policy and an exhibit to go with it, but you can't force any board member to do it.
Understood.
And then finally, there is a provision that I've added that in the event, to align with the policy, that board member comments or reports will be limited to 3 minutes to align with what the public receives, that any reduction or expansion would apply across the board. So if you have to limit public comment to 2 minutes, board member reports would also limit to 2 minutes. If you expand, then they would also expand, so that there's parity between both the public and the board members. Does anyone have any questions about the changes? And Sherry, I think I heard you say there's one thing missing that clearly needs to be added for the second reading, but any questions about what's in it as of now?
No, I think this is a really clean way to implement the suggestions from our prior discussion, so I don't have any issues with the language that's currently written. I'd be interested to get other board members' feedback and public feedback on it.
No concerns on it, the way either, looks good.
Okay, so Sherry, what's missing from the
Well,
The
the
group
feeling
discussion?
that we had was that there are parents who don't want to come to a school board meeting and speak in public and have their ideas shared within the whole community. And the portion that we included was to have board and public have sharing sessions monthly at different location in the community, for example, the library, and 2 board members would attend each meeting to listen to community concerns and share positive comments. So I'm just saying that it's not going to be just a complaint situation, but to get to know each other and get to know what the school experience is for each family. So they would also hopefully share positive comments about what is happening in the schools. Meetings can take place for an hour, and it can be held during the months of September, October, November, January, February, April, and May, so there are no additional meetings during vacation months when we have a week off. Board members would only be asked to attend 2 meetings during the year. So that would be something that they could sign up for the whole semester or sign up for the year. They know that what month they'll be able to participate, if we could have someplace in the library or a meeting room, where just people can just come and talk and have conversation with each other if they want to talk to a board meeting, but yet do not want to speak in public. I noticed that even as a teacher, when I would have to sit at the table and have my concern or my input about what was happening in the schools, it was very hard to do sometimes. So I would think that it would have maybe some other people interacting with the board.
So this would be a new kind of central office run meeting that we would set up across town, not necessarily tied to existing meetings like PTA or welcome back to school nights.
Right, the PTA, et cetera, those were just to get us out into the schools so that we can see what is happening in the schools, because that's important to know. That's why we have people come and make presentations about what's happening in the district, because we can't be everywhere and know what's happening all the time. But this would just be a way to have an informal conversation with the public, and if one person comes, that's fine. If there are 12, that's fine. It's just very informal.
Well, I'd be in favor of that as well. So I guess we have you work with Susan then to modify either the exhibit or the existing policy to reflect that change as well.
It was in the document that I sent. Did you get that, Susan?
I got some brainstorming notes,
Yes.
but I think maybe I didn't read it as a separate library session. I read it as attending the meetings within. So I can modify that. I think it was how I interpreted it.
All right.
But I think what you're saying is that would go on the exhibit, right, with the other community sessions? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. Anybody else? So we're expecting this to come before a vote of the board when we're doing a bunch of other policy changes, like
Yes.
December 17th, I believe.
Yes, so we have Press 116. We'll have the first read of that at our first December meeting and the approval of that at the second December meeting. So I think we just include that in our approval of Press 116 at the, what is the second December meeting? The 17th, yeah,
Okay.
as an individual action item, yes.
Exactly. All right. Yep, be ready to vote on this in about a month. All right, thank you very much, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You
You as
too.
well. Moving now to our last administrative report on student services programming. Beth Ladd. Thank you for being here, Beth.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, Paul, and Board of Education. I'm always excited when we have the opportunity to highlight our students who receive special education services and the work that we're doing. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the reconfiguration of our department. I am here alone, but that is highly unusual for me. One of my colleagues is in class this evening, and the other is at a basketball game for their daughter. So,
And they just won. We just found
oh,
out.
excellent!
They're
Very
going to be in the
good.
championship
Very
tomorrow
good.
night. So, yay.
Both here for good causes, but we worked on this presentation together as we do most everything. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we reconfigured our department this year, follow up on some of the things we discussed last year, and it was, I believe, in January. I was here last, and then share a little bit of data that highlights some work in our department, and then some things we've done this spring, this summer, and this fall, and our priorities for moving forward. And so previously, the Student Services Department has consisted of the Assistant Superintendent when it was Todd Taylor, and before that, Dr. Baker-Ori, and an Assistant Director. And that was the case for quite a while. And then most recently, we added a half-time special education facilitator that was half-time with us in our department and half-time assistant principal at early childhood. And that position was added to support special education and our work, as well as our full-day or early childhood program that we had at King for a few years. And so when we moved away from the full-day pre-K program and looked at the needs of special education from pre-K to young adult, we made the decision last spring to move to 3 administrators within our department, and so that meant we reconfigured. And because we reconfigured, that allowed us to reassign buildings and roles within our department so that we had a better opportunity to have more face time with our administrators and our staff, to be more active in those buildings, and to be able to work deliberately across all of our spaces and just be able to better manage the workload that we have. We've been really creative in making sure that we're continuing to support our early childhood center, because our principal, Katie, there does continue to manage 360 students and many, many staff. And so some things have worked really well this fall, and we'll continue to monitor that and make sure that building has support. But we definitely know from stakeholders in this community loudly and clearly that we need better support and prioritization for students with disabilities across all of our buildings. And so this reconfiguration really allowed us to divide up and conquer some of those things differently and better. And so, following up from last January, we highlighted a huge area of concern for us, which was our students in special education and across the district, and ways we were making decisions about discipline and making sure that our students are in school and having access to their instruction as much as possible. And I have a slide later with some really clear data that some of the work we've done has had a positive impact, but that was something we talked about last January that I wanted to revisit. We also have an increasingly important need to make sure that all of our buildings are trained in threat assessment and the threat assessment procedures that are required by the Illinois State Board of Ed in all of our buildings. And so we have spent some time revamping that. We have more work to do moving forward. We have teams at all of our buildings. Some are functioning very well and managing that, and some we're needing to work with a little bit more and make sure those teams are addressing any threats that come from students or any other potential avenues where we receive threats in our buildings. Some of our spaces deal with this on a regular basis, and some of our buildings don't. But we want our teams to be prepared and be able to just initiate that protocol without thought, right? That it become a part of their habit, unfortunately. We also have increased the amount of support we're providing in terms of crisis and de-escalation. We use therapeutic crisis intervention for our model right now. We're exploring if that's something we're going to continue or look at something new, but we are really wanting to make sure that as many staff in our buildings who can be trained in de-escalation are, and so that has been something we've continued to prioritize. Last year, the Illinois State Board of Education came out with their comprehensive literacy plan, and we spoke about that last time. And so a couple of things that we really wanted to highlight in terms of this area is obviously the work we're doing in our general education curriculum with our new adoption, the work we're doing with our multi-tiered systems of support, and making sure those are functioning at the elementary level to really be prepared to look at the data we're receiving and put students in supports as quickly as possible. We prioritized implementing a progress monitoring tool that's very specific to reading and math and writing to make sure that within our benchmarking of map testing or our annual IAR testing, that we have quick, fast, easy measures to see if what we're instructing our students on is working. And so we have adopted DIBELS as one of our progress monitoring tools with our English language arts curriculum, and AimsWeb as a math and reading progress monitoring tool. And it's taken a little more time and energy this fall to get those up and running. We are in the middle of still training people on that, but we just feel that's a really exciting tool for our students in special ed and our students who are receiving interventions and supports before they hit us in special ed. Spent a lot of time talking last time about 504 compliance, and I'll talk a little bit later in the presentation about some trainings we've done with our administrators and our building leaders to make sure that we're being compliant, understanding our responsibilities for that. Recruitment and retention of staff. I don't know if there's ever a moment we're not in a space where this is a priority for us, and that was something we spoke about last time, and I have some data later on in the presentation that'll highlight that. A priority for us that is something we're really excited to move in the direction of knowing that our core instruction with our new math and ELA adoption is supporting is quality core instruction. We're being trained right alongside the general education teachers in that new curriculum as we roll it out, not because we anticipate that our teachers will be teaching that curriculum in the same way, but because we need to have knowledge as special educators about what that curriculum is and does for our students, so then when we are planning our specialized instruction for our students, that we have a better feel for how to connect those two. You'll see later on, one of our priorities moving forward really is our instructional practices and our specialized instruction for our students. I think as we have moved towards lots of alternative ways of certifying staff to be teachers in our schools, which is absolutely the right direction. We just have a greater need to make sure they're understanding what specialized instruction means, and so that's ongoing work that we're going to continue to be working on and prioritizing moving forward. We've spent a lot of the last year working on our legal understanding and compliance, and see the next phase as spending our time making sure we have curriculum for our students from the special ed standpoint and specialized instruction. we're going to take a look at 3 different data points. The first one is what we call our educational environment data, or our LRE data. This is one of the ways in which the Illinois State Board of Education and the federal government monitor us in special education. It's one of the ways that we make sure our students are having access to core instruction and their general education teacher. And so 63% of our students in Urbana schools who receive services are spending 80% or more of their day in the general education environment. That may not mean much to you right now, but as I move through this, hopefully it'll have some context for you. Our students range from students who receive speech language only services for, making sure they're pronouncing the R's and the S's correctly, all the way to students who have extremely significant either cognitive, emotional, or behavioral needs. And there's a continuum of need and services, but that 63% spending 80% or more of their day is something that we really want to take seriously and look at. Is there a way we can have students spending more of their time across our whole grade levels in their general education classroom? And so because you've got 63%, 80% or more, we've got 23% of our students who receive services are in that general education classroom for 40 to 79% of their day, and then 11% of our students are outside of that general education classroom for 40% or less of their day. We have students who are on homebound, students who are in alternative placements. It's very minimal, less than 1%. So that's just something that I didn't highlight here, but if you're not getting to 100% on this slide, that's because we have some of those kids in those more significant placements. If we look at the average LRE for the United States, that is at 66.2% of students in the United States are receiving or spending 80% or more of their day in the general education environment. So we're just a little bit below the national average, but to put that into perspective, Illinois ranks 50 out of 53 states or territories in serving their students in the general education environment. So our state is one of the lowest in the country, including territories outside of just the 50 states. And so while we're just a little bit below the national average as a state, we don't have the structures and systems in place to be doing what we need to for our students. And so that's just a little bit of perspective on that. It's one of the data points the state monitors us on, so I wanted to share that because I don't know that we take a look at this very frequently. This is where kids are spending their time. If we talk about where our students are actually receiving their special ed services, most of our elementary students are receiving their services in the special ed environment, whereas at the secondary level, most of our students are receiving the services in the general education environment. And I think that's a really important distinction for us to consider and look at and act on, because it's kind of flipped, right? If we're thinking about our kindergartners, our first graders, and our second graders, that's the foundational levels. That is really getting to know school, getting to know the world, developing your social relationships. And for us to have the most of our services in the special ed environment at that level flips when we get to high school and we're looking at our students who are taking more challenging academic classes. They're leaning towards what their transition plans say they're going to do after high school, and it's just something for us to look at, to discuss, and to be clear about what can we do to increase those services happening in the general education environment at the elementary level. One of the standard reasons why that's easier at the secondary is the schedule. Our secondary schedules are built in such a way that you have classes, you have passing periods, the whole building's functioning in that way. Our elementaries are just structured a little differently. And so we've done a lot this last year with our elementary schedules to align them and make sure we've got them set. We're going to continue to do that work and continue to have our IEP teams ask the question, can these services be in the general education classroom at our earliest levels? Retention and recruitment of staff. I mean, if you know anybody who wants to be a special ed person in this district, I would love to chat with them. But we do have some good data to share here, which I think is a testament to a lot of our staff trying to recruit people to come work for us, a lot of the initiatives out of the HR department in terms of getting people hired. And so last year, we had 18% of our teaching positions in special education unfilled. And so that equates roughly to about 16 positions. And this year, we have 17% of our teaching positions unfilled. And you're right, that's not that much different. However, we created 4 new positions, added 4 new FTE. So while we stayed about the same, we did add more positions. So that actually means that it's a little bit better than just the 1 percentage point decrease. Our teaching assistant positions, 16% were unfilled last year. This year, right now, 11% are unfilled, and we added 6 new positions. And so I think that is a testament to our administrators really getting out there and interviewing over and over and over again for our teaching assistant positions and doing a nice job of trying to get that staff filled in their buildings. What's important to know about the teaching assistant positions is by the nature of the job, those positions are turning over quite frequently. So on one day we have it filled, and on the next day we have a position that opens up. So we're really constantly looking at getting people into those positions. Our psychologist position is one of the most difficult for us right now. We have just a total of 7 FTE in this district, and we were short 1 last year, and we're short 2 this year. And that's a huge impact to all they do in our buildings. Our social worker positions have been filled for both years. We added 2 new positions there. So even though we added and increased the number of people we needed, we kept those filled. One of the reasons we added a couple of positions is we had clinical professional positions that were available to really support our students' mental health needs. Those positions were not being filled. Mental health providers don't want to work within our school structure typically. They have a different schedule and a different type of work-life balance when they're working for agencies or on their own. So we moved those positions to social work, school social work positions, and we're able to get those filled and increase the support we have to our students in that area. The next line is our occupational therapists, our certified occupational therapy assistants, and our physical therapist. We were short 1 last year, and we filled that this year with a lot of recruiting efforts, and we feel really good about that. We have 2 open speech language pathology positions right now. We contract out for both those positions, so students are receiving those services. One of them is a bilingual position, Spanish and English, that we've struggled to fill, and the other one is just a new position. We were frankly surprised to not be able to fill that this year. We've done several interviews for that and just have lost those candidates to other spaces. But overall, we need more people, but we are feeling that as we have added positions that we have been able to fill more than we were last year. So that's really a slight positive for that. The data that we really felt, we felt that it would be better, and when we pulled the numbers, we were really pleased to see that in terms of suspensions for our students with IEPs, we've seen a pretty significant change from last year to this year. I looked at the data from the start of this year through October 31st, and that's the same data from last year. We have put some extensive systems and supports in place to make sure that our students are staying in school and receiving support services that help make sure we're addressing their behavioral needs. And so some of that work is we had the Joint Student Discipline Committee between administration and our UEA leadership. It was a pretty intense process that we went through to try and come to agreement on some discipline procedures to either add to the contract or put in place. We didn't always agree, and we didn't end up with the product we thought we would, but what we have implemented is a behavioral matrix that talks about recommendations for suspensions for certain behaviors. And we also have put into place a behavior response continuum that really is a support document for our administrators as they're making decisions about discipline and supports for students. And you know, to go from 62 students last year who had 89 incidents that led to 198 days of suspension to only 76 days of suspension this fall. We knew the data would speak positively. We were quite pleased to see how distinctly different it was. Which isn't to say we don't have continued work to do to make sure our students' behaviors are being addressed and handled appropriately, and that we're making decisions appropriately about suspensions, because there is a time and space to make sure our schools are safe and are able to function. So some highlights from the spring and fall work. As being a former member of that Urbana Early Childhood Center or school team, I wanted to highlight, I know you probably have all seen this in some capacity, but they're monitored every 2 to 4 years on the quality of their program. And I include them in this because our program at UECS is known throughout the state. It has been around for many years, just celebrated their anniversary last year. They are known for their inclusive practices. They are inclusive of all students, and they received a quality rating of Gold Circle, which is really an impressive and big deal. A lot of people there doing a lot of work with our earliest learners. And so I wanted to highlight that because that does really relate to the inclusion we have for our students who receive special education services there. I spoke a little bit earlier about our curriculum adoptions from a general education standpoint. Our teachers are going through that training. They're receiving support in that area so they can co-teach and co-plan with their general education colleagues. We've adopted HMH and illustrative math over the last few years. We've had outside implementation specialists working with all of our staff. And from a special education standpoint, one of the foundational curriculums that we're using that has increased over the last few years is called UFly. And UFly is an intervention curriculum that aligns with the science of reading and aligns well with our CKLA curriculum. It is currently being used, I want to get this number right, in 4 of our 5 elementary schools right now, and is something we plan to expand on, but is a really quality, explicit instructional program that we're using for our students with learning disabilities, and we wanted to highlight that. Also, our Ames Web Plus is being used by both general education and special education, and really helping us to make sure that our students are making progress towards their goals. Another thing we've spent some extensive time doing this summer and this fall is what we call our LEA training. And just for everybody to understand what LEA means, it's Local Educational Agency, and in our world of special ed, we say LEA or LEA representative as the person who's sitting at that table in our buildings making decisions about our students and their special education needs. And so we've done some in-depth training with all of our administrators. We really focused on compliance. We focused a lot on making sure our parents have the ability to meaningfully participate in their students' IEP and special ed process, and that we're making decisions together. This is ongoing. Whether you have been a principal for 2 years or 10 years, as special education changes over time, we need to continue to monitor and make sure they have the skill set because they're there on the day-to-day basis. Adding a third administrator to our department meant that we are able to take those calls and be more accessible and be in those meetings alongside our building administrators, but we want their capacity to be what it should be. We meet with our assigned buildings typically bi-weekly and stay on top of problem solving and making sure we're making decisions together from a special ed department standpoint and a building administrative standpoint. One thing that started several years ago under Todd Taylor, and I have just been really impressed with how our special educators use our open gym times within our department. So we built this into our contract the last time we negotiated, that once a month we will offer an after-school time from 4 to 8 p.m. where any of our special education certified staff can come and do a variety of things. We rotate from building to building throughout the school year, so we meet at each building at least one time each year, which means that if you are a teacher at Urbana Middle School and we have our open gym at Urbana Middle School, you get to work in your own space that day, while everybody else we kind of assign and sign out spaces within that building. People work on their own stuff in their own space quietly. People come together as a whole building team and problem solve and meet once a month in this time. People may collaborate across the buildings, and we see just a consistent number of 40 to 50 people every month coming in for those hours after school. And the access they have to us, because we're there as well to ask questions and get support. This is a really great structure that we've created that is being successful for all of our service providers. One area that we don't get to spend a lot of time highlighting and talking about, because we spend so much time at that elementary foundational level, is our high school and our students that may spend more time there than their 4 years because they're eligible for services and supports past 4 years of high school until they turn 22. But our administrative team at UHS right now, led by Mr. Guzman and Ms. Kearns and Mr. Henderson, the department chair, have really created some unique and exciting vocational experiences at the high school. We've got the Tiger Cafe that a social worker and a speech language pathologist do weekly, where they take their cart and their kids and they go throughout the building and offer snacks and practice, as you can imagine, a wide variety of skills, from communication to math to organization to all the things that go into running a cafe. And so here you see the organization moving about, and it's just something if you're on their email chain, you know when that comes out that people are excited that they have this opportunity to engage with our students in a different way. Another great vocational opportunity that was all theirs in the making and started with Katie Rowland last year is we have the print shop at central office where our teachers send in their copy requests, and we have somebody that puts that together for them and sends it out. Well, now we have students at Urbana High School that are running their own print shop. And again, just another unique opportunity for them to build their skills and to support the staff in the building. So this was Nick Henderson's and the team's there idea, and it's really come together. They're very proud of their aprons that you see up there that have the Tiger print shop, because everybody needs an apron when you're doing a job where you put stuff together. One other highlight of the vocational experience at UHS, which we don't have pictures for, but is just been put together, is what we have adopted is a PAYS lab. That's copyrighted name of a program where they offer explicit assessment of over 40 different skills. And the high school has set this up and has started training people, and is something that will be implemented second semester. And so I anticipate at our update next year being able to show pictures for that. But another really exciting explicit instruction opportunity for our students with more significant needs at the high school. And so I mentioned this earlier, but going forward, we really have to continue to identify what instructional materials we're using for our specialized instruction and what we're not using, and what we need to keep building that capacity for our teachers to be providing quality intervention and supports to our students across reading, writing, math, social skills, communication. So that is our next big priority of work now that we have spent so much time on that compliance and legal component to our jobs. We've got data-driven IEPs, really more accessible to our staff now that they have those progress monitoring tools. We have initiated a couple of community collaboration and partnership with Parkland and the U of I on some different foods programs that they do there and are willing to bring into our high school over the next few semesters, and so that's exciting to see. We have some partnerships with some of ISB's programming for behavioral assessment training, and I had one. We have another partnership that I'm blanking on right now. And we need to continue to do work on where and how we're serving students versus in the general education classroom versus the special education classroom, and have a better balance for that. So those are several of the things we're doing with our time over the next year and a half. And I wanted to take this opportunity to just remind everybody that we do have the Urbana Special Education Family and Staff Advisory Council. We meet 4 times a year. We have really had a small group, less than 4 parents attend and less than 5 staff attend each time. But we really feel like it's an opportunity to continue to collaborate, hear concerns, to provide parents with information on our programming and programming that's available in the state for their child and then their grown adults with disabilities. And so our next one is December 4th. We are at Urbana High School, so we can actually see and take a tour and learn more about our vocational experiences. And then February 12th and April 17th, we're back at Urbana Early Childhood for those. So staff and families within this community are welcome to join us, and we'd love to see everybody there. Any questions?
Thank you. Board members, any kind of specific questions? Go ahead, Sherry.
I just made a couple notes here. I want to, with fewer psychologists, how are you managing to get all the IEPs and 504 plans done within the time limit that you have to do it? How do you do that?
Next question.
Okay.
Oh, no, I will. So one, we have amazing psychologists. And so I can't express enough how much they have stepped up and supported each other and all the buildings. And so we have psychologists that are doing work above and beyond what their typical role has been. And so we appreciate them and all the work they're doing. We also, because there's only so much time and so much ability to get things done, have had to take a serious look at what our psychologists have traditionally done in their day and time, and the way in which they supported buildings that really they're amazing at, but is outside their area of expertise, right? When we had to narrow down that we need to prioritize our psychologists using their assessment hat and assessing students and doing that component of their job, and talk about who are other people in the buildings that could step up and do some of the other things they did. And so that put a lot of work and effort off on some of our administrators, some of the other leadership roles in the building. That's not ideal, and that's what we've had to do. Todd Taylor has come back and is filling in for us as a retired psychologist, and so we're lucky to have him. And then we have spent a lot of time recruiting anyone we know in the community who is a school psychologist who could, maybe has a day job, but could do some evaluations or report writing for us. And we also are exploring contract psychological services as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a big responsibility. What are some of the community work sites that you have for students?
So I don't know of all of the community work sites off the top of my head. I can tell you ones that I know about, ones we've used in the past. We probably have, unfortunately, fewer work sites now than we did pre-COVID for obvious reasons. COVID shut everything down, and getting back up and running has been difficult. A lot of our students, we continue and have for several years used Salt and Light on Philo as a community work site. We have used some nursing homes in the area previously as community work sites. I'm trying to think.
Is there a way you can send us a list so that, because
Absolutely.
we should support those businesses
Yes,
because they're helping our
absolutely.
students?
We also have really struggled to find additional community work sites. I'm trying to phrase that positively. Any work site that, and I used to oversee the young adult program in Champaign directly, and the young adult program here directly in previous roles. And any work site that we have experienced long term has had positive things to say about what our students and our staff are doing in their spaces. And so for any businesses locally in Urbana or anything that is on a bus route who is interested in having and supporting students at the high school level in community work sites, we'd love to collaborate with you. And I'll get some more specifics to you, Sherry, because you're right, it is important to support those places.
One more quick question.
Absolutely.
The Tiger Cafe, is that for teachers only?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Staff, yes. Great question.
Okay, anyone else? I do have a couple.
Yeah.
So I know that the compliance requirements for special ed staff are more stringent, or at least different than they are for general education staff. Is there enough time for PD to bring everybody up to speed, especially with the new staff you've got in place? That's question one. And I guess the follow-up kind of tied in question is, are there changes you'd like to see in the next contract negotiations to make your job a little easier?
The first question is there enough time? And so the answer is going to be no. Because there's never enough time for everything. Dr. Ivory Tatum has given our department, I feel, over the last year and a half, a significant amount of face time and opportunity to work with our administrators. She's prioritized through her PD department. Yvonne Smith put together for our last, for our first fall institute, our last institute just last month, a whole strand focused on supporting our students with special education needs. So I definitely feel supported and prioritized in this district. I think one of the biggest priorities is how to have access to general education teachers from our department, and that's a really complicated question because we don't have enough time in general to meet with staff and prioritize everything. We've done multiple curriculum adoptions over the last few years, and so obviously that has to be a priority. Our department leadership has done some staff meetings at different buildings, and principals have given us FaceTime with their staff as well. We need to continue and build off of that and grow off of that. I think we spent a significant time with the discipline conversations of what this looks like for both gen ed and special ed together, which a lot of places aren't going to have tackled it that way. And so, yeah, there's still a lot of ways in which we have to think creatively about how to make sure our staff are growing outside of the times we have with them too. The ways in which we are alternatively certifying general education staff and special education staff is critical to making sure we have, the staff in our buildings. But we need to be more aware and mindful of what those programs are preparing our staff for so that we can supplement that when they get to us. And that's, I think, the work ahead of us. Priorities for the next contract. I'll keep that right here and start doing some thinking.
That sounds
Yeah.
fine. Just, keep that in mind in the next year.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you, Beth. That was a really great,
Thank you.
comprehensive report.
Appreciate it.
There is a call for, jumped ahead. We have action items, starting with our consent agenda. 11.1 are our minutes from our October 29th business meeting, our November 6th special meeting, our November 7th special meeting, and our November 12th study session. 12.2 are our bills and checks. Ed fund bills to the tune of about $1.3 million. O&M fund bills for $216,000. Bond and interest for $530. Transportation fund bills for $294,000. Working cash bonds for $1.225 million. School facility occupancy tax for $81,000. Tort for $192,000. Life safety levy for $19,500. Payroll for $7.3 million. And Urbana adult education for $63,000. There's a list of personnel items that were in our packets. That's 11.4. 11.5 is resolution authorizing and directing the sale and disposal of property. These are cabinets, broken tables, chairs, and desks. Well, first of all, does anyone wish to remove any one of these particular items from the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the entire consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? If not, then a roll call vote is in order.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
President Pulowski?
Yes.
And Member Bexley?
Yes.
We do have two individual items as well. First up is gifts. Linda Collinsworth from Urbana donated $100 to the Evelyn Burnett Underwood Music Assistance Trust Fund. Is there a motion to accept the gift and send up the appropriate thank you?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. 12.2 is the 2024 proposed tax levy that was discussed earlier this evening. Is there a motion to approve the levy?
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion or questions? Hearing none, a roll call vote is in order.
Vice President Exum?
Yes.
President Pulowski?
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Member Baxley?
Yes.
Member Jones?
Yes.
There is a call for a special meeting tomorrow night at 5:30. At 6 o'clock. You're right, because of the turkey giveaway. There's a special meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at 1101 East University Avenue for the purpose of student discipline. Superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, John. So I did want to publicly make an announcement. I know Mr. Cooper shared this with staff at a staff meeting last Monday, and I know it has been on the news and been shared publicly, and also shared with parents. I was kind of waiting until parents received that announcement, which is why I didn't mention anything at last week's board meeting. But we do very much want to thank Principal Derek Cooper for his service to the district for the last 3 years. I hope board members have heard, and I don't know about well, of course, board members have heard, but people watching this publicly, or those who may go back and watch this on YouTube, we definitely want to give our well wishes to Principal Cooper, who is going to be leaving UMS at the end of the year. He is relocating out of the area to the Chicagoland area somewhere. He and his wife, and he will be finishing the school year with us. And we are going to be posting for his successor very soon. But I've been in several meetings with Mr. Cooper in the last week and a half since he made his announcement, and he is very committed to finishing the year strong, and really working with the district to find someone to step in to help Urbana Middle School in the next phase of their journey. So we wish him all the best, and he and his wife, and we just want to thank him for his service, publicly thank him for his service to Urbana School District. We very much appreciate him. I know there were some comments on social media about the fact that it's November and he's making this announcement so early, but it's important to make these announcements early, especially since he already knows he's going to be relocating, and that decision has been made, because it really does help us post that position now. It gives us the opportunity to post the position for the 6th grade center at the same time, so we can get 2 really good candidates who hopefully will be able to work well together. So it is very helpful to the district that Mr. Cooper is announcing this now, which we really appreciate. And so we just really want to say thank you to him. And again, thank you to his family for just, kind of wrapping around him the last 3 years and giving him to us, for this time. So again, we wish him well, and thanks for his service. So go to the next one. And the theater. So I don't know who got to go see Mamma Mia, but I went on the first night, on Thursday night. It was fantastic. So colorful. So these pictures, of course, do not do it justice. So if you got to go, really colorful. The singing was great. And an announcement we got from Jennifer Heaton afterwards was that they were selected to perform at the Illinois High School Theater Festival in January. So yay, that was really, I think they found out like the very next day after they closed. So the festival is January 9th through 11th over at the University of Illinois. So that is really exciting. So it was just really well done. So kudos to the directors, to the team, just to even these sets. Like you can see the sets in the background, and just the lighting was really important to this because of all the colors. So just the whole team. It was very, very well done. So shout out to the theater team at UHS and the drama production. Great job. Next is the Mariachi Tigres from De Urbana. They were at the Hacienda Agave restaurant for their first year anniversary celebration with Miss Gingold, who was back there holding that check. So I don't know if you saw them on the news, but they got a lot of news time last night. There was a really great clip of them performing and singing. The restaurant gave them a very generous donation of $700 to go toward uniforms. And I think they got $200 in cash, too. So it was really like a $900 donation. So Ms. Gingo was really excited, and the young people in this group they're just great kids. And so they've been out representing Urbana in such a fantastic way. So I'm really glad that they're getting out and being able to be in the community, sharing their gifts and talents. So this is a great picture, but if you can, go back and watch the WCIA story last night, because you can really see them performing. It was a really nice story. and the food drive. So coming up, starting, well, I think it started now, through November 22nd, the UHS Interact Club, which is part of Rotary, and UHS PTSA are joining Urbana Police Department in collecting food for the Eastern Illinois Food Bank. So you can bring your non-perishable items to the drop-off locations at Phillips Recreation Center, Urbana Police Department. This was last year, and a group of folks, we had a lot of, everybody just dropped off so much. We had several carloads worth of non-perishable items that were brought over to Urbana High School. So you can bring them directly to door 1 or door 9 at UHS. Donations will be collected through Friday, November 22nd at 3 p.m. And then they'll load it all up like this picture last year and put it in everybody's cars and take it over to Eastern Illinois Food Bank. And the Thanksgiving dinner, the 51st annual. Isn't that amazing? 51st annual Thanksgiving dinner. UHS Student Council, formerly known as Student Senate. The community Thanksgiving dinner is still happening November 28th. Inner door 1 at the Commons. 4 through 6 is free and open to the community. If you'd like to donate, you can scan the QR codes there if you want to donate, or if you want to volunteer, you scan the code on the right. If you want to donate anything for the event, you scan the QR code to the left. If you, they'd like you to do that by the 21st so they can plan ahead for food and volunteers. So if you are interested in doing either one of those things, volunteering or donating, please see the QR codes on the bottom. And shout out to Student Council for all their work to get this going, and Ms. Alvarez, the sponsor. Family reading night. So these are some really cool pictures from UECS. Their family reading night was last week. Aren't they adorable? So our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, these are I know Beth was talking about some of our youngest students. So all of our schools have had their family reading night, except the high school. Middle schools is happening right now. Well, it's probably over now. I think it was over at 7. So this is a few pictures of the early childhood event from last week. So all of our schools are really focusing, really trying to focus on literacy and putting books in the hands of kids. I believe at every family reading night, at least the younger ones, at the elementary and early childhood ones, every student is leaving with a book in their hands to take home. So this is just a few shots to give people an idea of what is happening at some of those family reading nights that are going on at our elementary, and this is early childhood. And Illini Field Trip Day. So I just really want to thank the Fighting Illini Women's Basketball Program for all of the tickets. So we had so many Urbana students out at the basketball game yesterday. So this is a picture of the high school students who went. Ms. Kearns is in there, Dr. Motley, Ms. Ward, Nick Henderson's back there. But we had several schools. There were students from the middle school, a couple 8th grade teams. There were kids from King, Yankee Ridge, or just elementary schools had lots of our young people were really there for Field Trip Day to support the women's basketball Fighting Illini. So great day for our USD 116 students. They were really representing. And this group in particular is our high school students, and they were selected based on a criteria of student engagement and attendance. So this was kind of an incentive for them. They earned the right to go. So it was kind of a positive trip for them to get to be there. And some closing out dates. You know, we have Thanksgiving break coming up. Our last 2 family reading nights there on the 21st, DPW and Yankee Ridge. Beth mentioned the upcoming Special Ed Family and Staff Advisory Council. We end our time for the semester on Institute Day, December 20th, and then we will be closed for winter break through January 5th. Oh, you saw, okay.
Sorry. I'm going brain dead. So we did have 3 FOIAs completed. We don't need to read them out loud, but they're published in our agenda. We do have board reports tonight, starting off with Member Langendorf's request to have us discuss the things that are going to be on the agenda for the delegate assembly.
This is my first time being a delegate at the conference, which will take place this weekend. Paul, you've done it before, and Tori, have you?
No,
No? You should
No,
have done your
yeah.
turn this year.
I'm often a runner. I used to be, Brenda used to love doing it, so
Yeah.
we just
Yeah,
let
it used to be
her
Brenda's thing
go.
forever, and then Ann
Yeah.
did it for 1 year, then I did it.
Yeah, and then Brenda had it since.
Well, so I read a little bit about it, and basically, they have a committee that went through several, many resolutions, and there were like 13. And of the resolutions that were received by the committee, they recommended that 6 be adopted. So they're going to be voting on, the delegates will be voting on those 6. And I included it in the list that I sent to you one regarding dual language, one regarding the charter school funding and EBF funding, one about TIFs, another one about face law, healthcare coverage, and the polling place. And those all were recommended to pass or to be used for, so that they can use them as their position statements and then guide their advocacy work. So they're not going to, these things won't happen, but it will happen, so they'll advocate to the legislature and to the governor so that they can continue supporting schools and students. So were there any questions or concerns about any of those? Okay.
The other one I guess disagreed with the committee's recommendations was number 6. Just because I think everything public should
Number
be
6?
Was that the polling place?
the polling place.
Yeah.
I still think that every public body should be closed to allow people the opportunity to vote. But
Oh, well, this is saying that, I guess there were schools that were closed that they didn't need to close. I guess originally they closed because it was a polling place for the safety of students and staff there. They didn't want the public coming in. So they're saying if schools don't have a polling place at their schools, there's no reason for them to be closed.
right, but I think they should, because to allow everybody a chance. I mean, if I had my way, it'd be a national holiday and everybody
Yeah.
would have the day
right.
off. But
And they're also, the other reason too was they thought that there's so many opportunities to vote beforehand, that people have the opportunity to vote on weekends or any days before. So there's other opportunities besides polling
Oh,
that
sure.
election day. So.
I understood. But
Well, I'll notate that.
that's
see
just
what
my
they say.
personal opinion.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
I
see
mean,
what they say.
you're the delegate. You can vote your conscience, and I appreciate you soliciting input from us.
Okay. The other 3, there were 4 that were not recommended, and 3 of them were appealed, so that they will have a chance to have some debate about them on at the assembly. One was cell phone usage, and I stated that the reason why the committee felt that they shouldn't adopt this one is because they felt is that each district should develop their own policy and it shouldn't be statewide. The other one was the Office of Inspector General to investigate allegations of waste, fraud, financial mismanagement, and they thought that there are a lot of things and laws in place, so that it didn't need that. And the criminal background check are for those people who want to run for school board, and when they turn in their petitions and their application for candidacy, they should also turn in a criminal background check, and they said that wasn't necessary because it shouldn't be any different than any other office seeking person. So that's why. So any comments on any of those?
I agreed with all of those being a no.
You what?
I agreed with those being a no.
Okay, being no. Okay. Well, I'll let you know how they vote.
And thank you for doing it, Sherry. Appreciate it.
I'm sure we're happy on that, if that Faith's Law one goes through. Yeah. A lot of people don't understand how much
So I've
work
got
that is.
Other board reports?
Yep. I've been asked to bring attention to the Leal Elementary School PTA fundraiser. So, the Leal PTA aims to empower and connect teachers, staff, parents, and students to support all students at Leal. This year's fundraiser is crucial for building a strong new school community with the goal of raising $6,000. Donations, which are tax deductible, fund enrichment opportunities like teacher grants, appreciation activities, field trips, and playground updates. For questions or ideas, email lealschoolpta@gmail.com.
What's the, oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, what is the fundraiser?
Well, I was given it to read, so I have to-
Okay, excuse me.
I think it's probably for the, what they did last year, the fair,
Oh, okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
last year was a raging success, so
Mhm.
lots of fun.
Any other board reports?
Yeah, there is a new flyer and for Tiger Market, and it's also on the school webpage now, Facebook page, so that can be accessed as well. It's open on Friday afternoons. Ms. Hernandez has the market open, so students can go there individually and shop for foods. And this semester, we've tried, continue to try to do it 2 Tuesdays mornings during breakfast to bring food into the commons area so students can be aware of Tiger Market and see some of the foods that are available. But I think we're going to start next January for next semester. We're going to do it during lunch so that we can reach more students. And we'll have an area in the commons where students can come and take additional foods if they want that. So we'll see how that goes. I also had a meeting with Emily from Food Service, and starting in January, she'll also have different recipes using the different ingredients that the students can get from the market, and so that they know how to put things together, maybe to have more nutritional foods, but and there'll also be recipes in English and also in Spanish. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion after a 10-minute recess to go into closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals who serve as independent contractors, or specific volunteers of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee, a specific individual who serves as an independent contractor, or a volunteer of the district, or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this Act. 5 ILCS 120/2 C1, amended by PA 101-5459. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Any further comments or discussion? Roll call, please.
President Pulowski,
Yes.
Member Baxley,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Vice President Exum.
Yes.
After a 10-minute recess, we will be entering a closed session, and there will be no action after the closed session.